Perfectly timed. Showtime versus Gumiho in a best of 3 TVP. See what Gumiho's versus Protoss looks like. He is one of the last remaining Koreans, Bunny being the other one. Yay, Korean Terrans. Woohoo! The lower side of the bracket is guaranteed at this point to be TVT. I have a feeling that Raynor is going to win against Neeb. But the upper side of the bracket is still a bit of a diverse mixture of races. We're on to Parasite for the first game of this series. Looks like I'm going to need a nameplate. Aha! It's in the correct position, too. In the bottom right, as the blue Protoss, it is Showtime. In the top left is the red Terran. He is Gumiho. I should not have emphasized the ho. Didn't mean to BBM. Alright then. So Showtime. Not exactly holding down the Protoss fort. We still have Neeb in the upper bracket, but despite many complaints about TVP, and I'm not saying that this means that there isn't a problem, or that there is a problem. I'm not going either way. I'm just saying that the race balance here is actually not Zerg favored. Just throwing it out. Just throwing it out. Just throwing it out. I keep saying just saying, but when people say just saying, that usually means that they really mean it. But I literally am just throwing it out here. The winners of the NA server qualifier were Patience, Mara, Innovation. The one winner so far from today is Special, Terran player. So we'll see what it all ends up. And there are still 2 Korean server qualifiers to be played on, as well as, of course, the actual main event, which is far more important. The patch has been live for 2-3 months, something like that, right? But I still think that we're only just now watching a lot of development as far as especially TVP goes. But even as far as TVZ goes, right? Like, we saw a lot of Widowmine, regular old bio pushes, and Homestory Cup. In the last 3 days, we've seen lots. Probably even more than bio, we have seen the Cyclone Hellbat attacks. So, I'm thinking there's still going to be a lot to change by the time the tournament itself appears. Alright, so the Adept here, just guarding against any shenanigans. If there's anything on the way, actually. Gumiho going for no proxies. Probably on a... That's gotta be for a Cyclone, right? Yeah. Fast Cyclone. And a Marauder. So, a bit of a weirder opener. Like, a bag of units here. Marauder, Hellion, and a Reaper. He didn't go for any Marauder slow opener, which does exist. No, just included a Marauder. That is a fake Oracle. Nice hallucination gets a scout, though, if in case there was something weird going on. Sentient Adept doesn't do too good of a job stopping a Reaper and a Hellion. It's a little too fast, but the Reaper and a Hellion don't do anything really in combination. They have to get like 4 shots off to actually do any damage. Hey, it happened. 2 probes go down. Also with the help of this really random Marauder. This is such a weird Marauder. Okay. In this context, this early on, Marauder's kind of expensive. But alrighty then. 3 probes go down in total for that. Bunkers now being placed, as Parasite does not have that natural ramp, and there are definitely some Protoss who are still doing that cheeky high, warped in slow stalkers. Or either slowly warped in stalkers, and I killed you. Don't want to let that happen. It feels bad, really embarrassing when it does. Especially when you notice that the Protoss is going for a 3rd base and everything normal behind it. You're just like, oh, I just died to stalkers for like no reason. Bunker will save you from that. Oh, I reached the honey part of my tea. I actually really don't like the taste of honey, but it's supposedly helpful for your throat, so black. We're gonna see some real action start soon. Stims starting, or finishing up rather. Combat shields start up soon after that. Some tanks are on the way, and most importantly, medevacs are here too. Scan reveals what Showtime's got going on. A lot of times, and maybe on different maps, but a lot of times you do see some tech structures in the natural. Not so here, just sees the army. We know there's Colossus on the way, along with Charge and +1. This attack might be hard to deal with, but the Colossus is soon to arrive. The quick snipe on the Cyclone does help a little bit. Guardian Shield's going to help a lot versus the Marines. Showtime's still going to probably want to wait for Charge, and then I think he will be able to take care of this. And in that time, his Nexus could be targeted down, but it would be a very risky thing for Gumiho to do. Tank does target fire the Stalkers, so do the Marines. Try and get out of there in the medevacs. That works out quite well in that way. Viking lands in the main base, and that's what distracted the Colossus. Not that it was needed on the front lines. The game goes on as Gumiho doesn't seem to be the type to go for, well, I mean, I say that as if I've seen a lot of TVPs from him, but I'm not. But as far as we've seen from Innovation and Maru and the like, there's a lot of two-base attacks, a lot of fake thirds. Oh, Gumiho going for still like more tanks than you would expect, so some of his own flavor coming in here. Some Terran players are really going hard on tanks even. But that third base is being saturated, and he is still building SCVs. Colossus count continues to grow up to 2 now with a Stand Thermal Lance and +1. More importantly, the ground army around the Colossus is also starting to grow as more gateways are added on. You need that support, don't you? Third Colossus started. These Stalkers will not have any use over here, but once he realizes that, he should be dragged back off to the left side. Tanks are ferried forward to the medevac in here as soon as possible and sieging up to get some shots off on some very vulnerable units, Sentries and Colossus. Sentries more than Colossus, I suppose, but still, Colossus not able to take too many shots. Vikings going forward here as well, and it is just who was able to macro better out of this and who's able to take the better positioning. So far, it seems like it is going to be Gumiho who's able to get over the map really quite easily. Looks like a War Prism does drop off a couple of Zealots to be annoying, take away some Vikings, deal some damage, deal a decent number of SCV kills, but the Nexus is going to go down, and I'm not sure Showtime's going to be able to clean this up well enough to justify that. The Stalkers going forward trying to take out the tanks with his 3, then the rest of his army was lagging seriously behind, and the Stalkers are ripped apart, and they don't even get that one tank they're trying to focus fire. Colossus are focus fired from the tanks, and that is going to be at Showtime. Just a little too awkward on the engagements. You know, I don't think his army was necessarily wrong, but it wasn't all together, and it wasn't keeping tabs on where Gumiho's army was. I think that's just more of the reason than anything else. I feel like Showtime can show us a better macro game than that. In fact, I'm sure of it. If his army wasn't so disjointed, if he had something scouting, if his War Prism had attacked maybe a little bit sooner as well, because that would have given him some notice as to where the army is. If that War Prism drops the Zealots off 20 seconds, 30 seconds sooner, you start wondering where the hell the army is. Maybe the army even pulls back, gives you extra time. That could be a big difference, but it kind of dropped in as his army was engaging improperly, and it was it looked very awkward. Who doesn't like honey? My world is shook. I mean, it's like people say that honey's really delicious, and I feel like they mean honey flavored products or when it's a replacement for sugar. but it's not the main taste. Like, pure honey, I don't think tastes very good. Or maybe I am the odd one out. I don't know. It's game number 2 on Cerulean Fall. In the top right, as the blue Protoss, he is Showtime. One of the last defending Protosses. In the bottom left, one of the last Terrans. Or, nope, just kidding. One of the last Koreans. There we go. It is the red Terran, Gumiho. He is not one of the last Terrans. Although I guess we're running out of players in general, so if you want to be technical. We still have Hero Marine, Bunny, Euthermal. We still have a lot of Terrans left over. Looks like the top side of the bracket is still going on. Rainer versus Neve, I'm hoping, is a really good match. You guys can tell me in chat. I don't mind. I don't mind if you guys are watching that as well. In fact, you should be watching. You should have 2 monitors. 2018. Actually, it's 2019. Hey! And if you can afford it, you should definitely have 2 monitors. It's so much nicer. Yeah. Lots of Terrans in the lower bracket. Casting one more series after this, and then I'll host up Wardy so you can watch him. He gets that preference. A little bit of a block here from Showtime, and also a Cybernetics Core first for that Nexus. This doesn't just block out the Reaper from being able to hop into the main base, it also provides a bit of more of a faster jumping off point. Already was a smaller map, that if you did end up proning out a Stalker and Adept, it would get there perhaps in time to really be a pain in Gumiho's butt. This probe is kind of going off to the side, but it's mostly likely just avoiding the Reaper. Which it should time out rather... Oh, no, it was almost perfect. Ah, bother. This is Showtime's first scout on... Did it again. I swear that's not how vision used to work. It used to be that once the thing you're tagging vision on died, it just kept your camera there, but it lost the vision tag. Now it jumps back. I'm gonna complain to Blizzard about that. Anyway, that was the first scout from Showtime. So, you know, if this was a proxy, he might be in a bit of trouble, although he opens, you know, not too greedily. But he sees that it's a command center and can figure things out from there. Maybe he does send Adept across and shade through just to get some scouting down, but first he has to deal with the Reaper. He wants to keep this Twilight Council dark for as long as possible. Not that I think he's going to do anything nefarious with it, but it's always nice to have the Terran constantly guessing. If they know it's a Twilight Council, maybe they're more aggressive with the first Cyclone. They don't keep anything back. They know it's a Stargate, you know, so on and so forth. I don't know what ping they get from Korea to Europe. Someone asked this before, and I think the TLDR is that it's a lot. People throwing out the number 300. I think that's what I've heard from most people. It's not comfortable. This isn't just, oh, literally we saw this not microed because that ping exists. This is constantly, you know, having to double click some units, having to recheck everything, wearing on your mental states, the fatigue comes in. It can be a big deal, and some people are better than others. Some people are luckier than others to not have super bad ping, but generally Created Europe is pretty bad. Raw honey is good for people with coughs. Anything with the damage to the throat, because apparently honey was the first like septic? Is that the right word? Am I using the right word? Whatever. Antibiotic? Maybe that was the word. I don't actually remember. Someone bring up the right phrase. It's anti-something. Well, this is far more important. This attack goes okay. I thought the Cyclone would intentionally target fire the Sentry. Maybe he meant to, but sometimes that lock-on goes before you get to click on it, especially if you're talking about ping, right? Cyclone might lose its life. Blink's almost done. Oh, I think Showtime really wants to get this Cyclone. He could blink forward now. He does. That was a little risky. What if there's 2 more Cyclones instead of just 1 more Cyclone beyond that? Then maybe you lose your Stalkers. or just a handful of Marines, you name it, but it doesn't successfully snipe it, and Gumiho will continue to have that strong DPS. While it dies quickly, you are attacked by both tanks, maybe Banshees and some other games you've seen from Terran and the Cyclones. Suddenly, you have too many high damage, really dangerous units to tackle the target fire. Every little bit counts when it comes to these big hulking units. You know, kill one Marine, does it really matter? Kill one Cyclone, kill one tank, that really matters. Their Nexus is almost finished up. Charge on the way along with a Warp Prism. Lots of production, too. That going up to Colossus, so it should be a much larger ground army. It should also be an army that Showtime, I feel like he should be a little more active with. One of the problems that happened last game is that he did lose tabs of the army. And while he saw the army, he sees the army, my bad, moving out with the Observer. That's great. He's not doing anything to try and poke and prod at it. Usually this is where you would see someone try and snipe the Cyclone or the Medevac. Not that he has a lot of stalkers to do that, but regardless of his, you know, pausing this attack or not, and charge is not done, it just looks like he doesn't have enough. This is hitting right before all of his production has really kicked in. And Showtime might just be killed here. Some micro going in. This is stimless, combat shieldless. This is rather dedicated from our Terran player. And I brought up Banshees, and it does end up being a Banshee here. More than one, but not with Cloak. Can Showtime hold on? It looks like maybe just by taking out those Marines that he did when he was microing the Stalkers, this is going to be too little for Gumiho to continue on with. If Stim was done, I mean, if Stim was on the way even, right? Like, it just wasn't even researched. This would have been a very different story, but Gumiho dedicating to an attack without the Banshees included, that high DPS unit, without the Stim included, ended up looking quite weak, actually. Showtime taking its time, being very patient with it, ended up working out really, really well. It kept most of the Stalkers alive, even though they're injured. And now it's Showtime's chance to bite back here. He has Charge and Blink, but no upgrades, so he's somewhat dedicated himself. You know, no gases here, and only one gas. Actually, no gases here, so he's just putting everything into charge lots. But it's probably going to work out totally fine. That timing almost worked for Gumiho, even without that Stim. Had he been a little bit sooner, the gateways really had only just been finishing up, but things have really turned here. Showtime takes game number 2. It's a series. Protoss might just stand strong. The Koreans might be bopped out, depending on how Humarine versus Bunny is going. I say bopped out as if they didn't get very far, and clearly they did. Laser was also in Korea playing a Europe server. What's the point of having random tiles at the bottom of the ramps? There used to be a very strong attack. You put the bunkers on the low ground, and you could cover the ramp entirely. You put cannons there as well. So they just made it mandatory that all ramps have a low ground debris. Yeah, actually, pylons were literally what they used. Oh god, that's right. You could just pylon block off the Zerg player and laugh your way to the bank, or you could just do a full-on cannon rush and laugh your way to a dead Zerg. Good times. I remember more often Idra getting enraged by bunker rushes abusing the same thing. That was fun. And let's be real, even when they started to include these tiles on the low ground, Terran and Protoss just started going lol 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 and walling off these ramps and these chokes, so. Since then, most maps have too large of chokes to even try to do that. Of course, I say that, and we all remember Haas versus Jaedong, where he didn't care how large that map's ramp choke was. He just still did it. What map was that? Polar Night? Was that what it was called? Something like that. It's a best of 3, and this is the elimination match. Whoever loses here is out, but whoever wins still has a long way to go before they're qualified through the lower bracket. In the top right, as the blue Protoss, it is Showtime. The bottom left is the red Terran. It is Gumiho. Gumiho finally going to be bringing out this one base build here. He's going to fake proxy, but legitimately one base it for a while. Showtime is looking for the true proxy right up against his main base walls. He's not going to find anything, though. And maybe this is what he did last game. Maybe that's why his probe scout was so late. I think ultimately this type of scout is still going to be a little harsh for him. Now he once again goes for the next after cybernetics core, which, you know, makes it so it's not the greatest thing you can do. And if he puts a pylon on the low ground, which is exactly what he does, he can basically ensure that even a late scout will give him enough notice to respond. Maybe it gets a little tricky if it's something like a T-Rex Reaper, and who even does that? You know, not very many people, because now you have not a lot in the main base, but assuming that it's more of the normal proxies, which are either the single proxy barracks or a cyclone, as long as you can scout it, you get some whiff of it, you can put down some shield batteries, and even try and take advantage of maybe the ramp, for instance, if you think you know where they're coming from. Blah, 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 blah. So the barracks is going to reveal that it was just out. Oh, no, is it? Okay, well, that's funny. He thinks that it's proxied where it's probably not really proxied at all, but he'll get back around and see that it is, in fact, just floated over from someplace to the right side. He probably won't get the probe out alive to be able to scout that, which is a little disappointing. He could easily send another probe, though. Or an adept, either way. Yeah, let's the adept finish. Yeah, it could very well scout over here. But it's either over here or it's over here. More lately, I've been seeing it definitely more here, but Showtime could certainly still scout the wrong location. The probe did see something else that was important, and that's that there wasn't a factory here, and that if there wasn't a factory, there also wasn't a starport, so sees all the SCVs and gas, too, so you know there is a starport somewhere around this time with that much gas. He does find it, indeed, and a tech lab for the factory was really only used for the starport. Single cyclone to help defend it, but it's just a proxy. Well, not even. It's supposed to be a hidden Banshee, but the hidden part is no longer true. The adept sacrifices her life to scout that, but absolutely worth it. As Showtime doesn't inappropriately respond with, I don't know. Actually, this is a really nicely placed shield battery. It kind of helps the probe line. It kind of helps the front line. But if it was a pure cyclone attack and he thought it was Banshees and he built it in the mineral line, one apiece, not as good. If he thinks that it's you know, vice versa, and puts the shield batteries in the wrong position another way, then it's also bad news. So it's good to know exactly what's happening. Shield battery in the main economy, in the mineral line, maybe a little later on, and one here is pretty safe. You know, even with an observer, even with a good number of stalkers, especially if you think they might be attacking you with cyclones, despite their, you know, oh, it was just that one. Like I lifted my factory, don't worry about it. Could still happen. You gotta take it seriously. And they could always wait for 2 Banshees to come in where you're still a little low on those units. You don't really want to get a second observer necessarily this fast. And if you do get a second observer, you want it to be across the map scouting, so. Nothing silly here, basically, from Showtime. No overconfidence that I can see. And he even got 3 observers. There you go. So really quite protected against everything. Now on his way to an immortal. Now, Gumiho made Showtime really respond to this. As proper as Showtime is responding to it, you could maybe argue that he's still, you know, too defensive. It's hard to really accuse Pros of being too defensive when there's so many options, but maybe you could say that, right? Like, he knew everything was happening. Like, did he really need to get shield batteries and 3 observers? Or vice versa? Couldn't he just gotten 2 observers or something along those lines? And yeah, I could see that argument. Certainly is still a chance for Gumiho to come out ahead here, as he is ahead in that army supply, only down 10 workers. He's even that bad, really, I guess, with 2 mules. But he has stopped making workers. He's even pulling some. He should be pulling a few. There we go. There's a couple more. Showtime knows about this and will be launching his army forward, trying to take advantage of the ramp of the choke. Will go ahead and snag a cyclone, but sacrifices a sentry for it. And Guardian Shield or Force Field could be very important. Showtime, we know, certainly has enough observers to make sure these Banshees don't go out of hands, which sometimes happens. Sometimes the only reason that the Terran push works like this is because the Banshees somehow go undetected. You know, Marine snipe the observer and so on. So you gotta be a little careful with that. I guess he's only down to one observer. Or 2 observers. But 1 in surveillance mode, another 1 in surveillance mode, and even with 1 getting sniped, the other one should still do the trick. Bunkers are being made way, way far out. Oh, what the? Those Immortals got a little too far forward. Maybe a little bit awkward there, but they do take out the tanks. One comes up behind in the nick of time here. The tanks went down. A Banshee went down. Cyclone's very, very low here. The Observer is sniped, but again, here's one over here. Showtime's also adding in Disruptors, so there's no real siege hop forward. I mean, there's nothing to siege hop, right? I guess Tank and Liberator both could siege hop each other, but that's going to be a decent enough shot from the Disruptor. I guess it didn't really matter. There just weren't enough units for Gumiho, and Showtime successfully holds against the 2-base push.